Hello and welcome to Balls on a Tray, a gaming podcast. We're here to disprove the rule that you can't keep a good podcast down. So we're back after our summer break. It's Season 4, Episode 1. I'm Tony Chandler, and we're recording this on the evening of Wednesday the 5th of September, 2018. With me tonight, Simon Allen. Hey, Simon.
Hi, Tony. It's good to see you. How are you?
It's good, yeah. I haven't seen you guys for weeks. I mean, people might get people don't get the impression from listening to this podcast that we're friends. But I don't tend to see you guys very much if we don't actually do the podcast, which is a great shame.
We just turn up. We just turn up to and collect our checks. It's the only time we really see each other in person. Which I'm meaning to ask you about, actually, because I haven't really been getting any checks recently.
No, well, I mean, we did look at monetizing the podcast, but we thought 50 grand per listener per podcast was a touch steep.
That's just my fee as well. So you're really struggling.
All right, well, I'll just going to quickly introduce our special guest today. It's Kat. Hi, Kat.
Hello. My mum did actually ask today, because she said, have you got any plans coming up right now that the girls are back at school? Which means, no, I don't have any plans at all. So I was like, oh, well, the podcast is back, so I'll be doing that later. She was like, oh, that's nice. I said, the one with my gaming friends. She said, oh, and any chance of making any money from it? No, categorically no.
I'll tell you what, no, I was going to say I'm impressed that she's obviously listened, but then she hasn't listened if she thinks there's any chance of making any money out of this. It's like, I mean, it really would be like, kind of alchemy, wouldn't it? If we could make gold out of this, it would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
It's like sieving through poo for nuggets.
On an alternative, reality somewhere. Maybe that happens.
No, I'm not even going to take that.
I was trying to be positive.
I know, but
somewhere out there, we're all rich and popular and famous.
Even after my editing, escapades every 2 weeks, trying to make this sound at least half decent, I simply can't accept that in some alternate universe, this podcast is popular and B makes money.
I don't think Kat said that. Kat said in an alternate universe we're popular and well known, and that's the podcast. That's the universe where we never started this podcast.
That's true. Yes.
We never met.
Yeah, we're all doing so much better for it.
I'm in one direction.
And Tony's in another.
Oh, you could have been, I think. They always had an older one. Yeah, like J in 5 was like the old one.
Wow, a reference to 5.
As well in 5, yeah.
Do you know what I fell asleep to? This is true. The other night, I fell asleep to of mid to late 90s TV adverts on YouTube.
Oh my God.
I started... I can't remember. Oh, I had something in my head about finesse. Maybe a little finesse, or maybe...
Oh, we're all stumped. No one on this podcast knows the word finesse.
It was like a shampoo ad, and I had it stuck in my head, so I looked it up, and I ended up on this hour of, and it had all that, the Vitalite one with the singing sun, and it was Vitalite. Yeah, I know that better than the original. So that was coming up. And I just it was kind of soothing, and there was things I'd completely forgotten about until I saw the advert for it, and I fell asleep to it. And then I dreamt that I was time traveling, and I went back to 1977. And I was desperately trying to tell people, no, I'm from the future. And they didn't believe me. And they were like, well, tell us something that's about to happen. And I was like, I don't know what happened in 1977 or 1978 to prove it.
Elvis died.
See, I didn't know that.
And I was born in 78, right? So, I mean, that would have been a big world event that people would have known about, so...
Yeah, of course, because, you were rich and famous there.
In this alternate universe, yeah.
Yeah.
But, when you talk about adverts, I was just thinking of, body form.
Oh, that's classic. Yes.
I know, how is a tampon advert so memorable? I think it's you don't often see a woman in white roller skating behind 2 Dalmatians.
Just going to correct you. Obviously, body form, not tampons. Just saying.
How would I know? I haven't got a, lady garden.
No, but you do have a wife who has one.
No, that's never been proven.
You have a baby. That's a pretty decent proof.
Well, we had to
quite recently.
Well, that's why we went to the fertility clinic. I couldn't find it. I was sure it was there somewhere, but just thought, cut out the middleman. Don't get involved in all that. It's just woola. so how's everybody been all summer?
Like a Victorian grandmother. All of that unnecessary business.
Yes. Keep your hand on your halfpenny, as the expression goes. Yeah. So, John's never heard that one, apparently.
No, but I'm going to use it from now on.
Yeah, people will think you are 85 if you use that like I just did. So I'm just trying to think about what I've been up to over the summer, really. I had, for a birthday thing, I went to do single-seater racing around one of the small circuits at Silverstone. That was a really good day. I very much enjoyed that. It's one of these things that, I got a video of it, and you watch it back, and it looks like I'm doing 30. I could be in a Nissan Micra. But when you're there, you're like, this is the fastest, scariest thing you've ever done. It's absolutely terrifying. And the weirdest thing is, I've just noticed yesterday, my arse still hurts from doing that racing thing. So, the seat was rock hard. I think I bruised my coccyx, hitting a bump or something. And genuinely, my backside still hurts after about 2 months. So I'm beginning to wonder if I need to go to the doctor and get my arse out and say, is this normal?
Well, he's just going to look at it and go, no.
And they're going to say, no, sir, I'm a paediatrician.
So I had one of the guys that I work with, he did the same thing around the Stowe.
So I should just say, if you've never listened before, this is producer John, our producer. We don't normally introduce him.
No, I never get an introduction. I'm just kind of, it's almost like I'm here all of the time. And you just come in and do your podcast, but I just stay here. So I'm never
John
part of the show.
The
I'm just there. So I got my words saying. Oh yes, one of the guys at work, he got same birthday gift. Went round, did it, and I was comparing, because Tony and I have talked about this. I was comparing your notes with his, and he was equally bashed, bruised, and discomforted by the experience. He also spun it out at one point and was called into the pits and told off.
Did they not kick him off? Because they said to us, if you spin it, that's it, you're done. Your day's over.
He just give it a little bit of an extra sort of heavy foot coming out of one of the corners and looped it, drove back. They flagged him at the pits and said, please don't do that again. And he went, okay.
Oh, well, they were really quite strict. I tell you what, when I went there, so you're driving these cars that go 140 miles an hour down the straights or whatever, and they're open wheel, and it's all pretty hairy. And the scariest bit was the safety briefing at the start. They just put the fear of God into you, and then you get out there, and it's actually nowhere near as bad as you think. Yeah. They start talking all this really technical stuff. You got to balance the throttle. You got to keep the car. If you do that, you're going to spin. You do this, and you're like, oh my God, this is impossible. I'm never going to be able to do it. And then you get out there, and it's if you've played a racing game, you get a vague idea for what to do, and it's not, as long as you're not going mad and going to the first corner at 200 miles an hour, then you're fine, So I just gradually ramped it up and got faster and faster as I went around, and it was just a really good day. It was a very good way to blow off some steam after destroying a printer earlier in the same day.
Are we going to share that? Are we going to share that video, Tony?
Well, I haven't got a video. I've got pictures. But yeah, but basically, I don't know if you guys remember, I talked on the podcast before about having a printer that pissed me off every time I tried to use it and made me incredibly angry. And when I was trying to go to the Silverstone day, I needed to print out one page, which was kind of some key information I needed to go to Silverstone. I had to hand over this page when I got there. So I didn't want it just on my phone or whatever. So I was like, I'll just print this out. Printed it out. Everything came out apart from the black text. So all the Silverstone logo, all the other stuff apart from the text, which is the only bit. After the 30th go of trying to print it, I got another ink cartridge out and I fitted that and I did 3 head cleans and then I eventually started to print it and then it just did not work. I got angrier and angrier and Kirsten came up to plead with me, just calm down, because by that point I was punching it. I just started punching the top of it really, really hard. And then she just said, oh, calm down, and that made me even angrier. So I threw it over the balcony. I was in the hallway just because I had nowhere to plug the printer in that I could reach easily. So I just fucking ripped it off, lifted it like some maniac, the Hulk in a really bad day, and just fucking bunged it straight down the stairs. And it was still plugged into the wall, so that kind of ripped the power supply out the back of it, and the thing just smashed to bits, and it was so satisfying. I don't know if I'm ever going to buy another printer, because they are fucking shit.
It sounds like a scene from Better Call Saul, or something. I can imagine him going through something similar and then smashing it up.
Oh, it was just absolutely ridiculous. I just like every time I try to use it, and I swear to God, in the lifetime of that printer, I reckon it probably cost me about £1 a page because of the amount of ink I wasted doing head cleans and trying to print, and how many pages I wasted every time I tried to. Honestly, every ink cartridge I got almost maybe 10 pages out of that thing because it used to just kind of dry up and be fucking useless. It dogged me off, and I just beamed it down the stairs. Great fun. I'd recommend it to anyone.
Well, there you go. Chinese holiday fun advice for everybody there.
The angriest man alive strikes back, yeah.
What about you, Simon?
I like to think I'm quite mellow, but printers, fuck me.
So what did you get up to, Simon?
Hang on, just before Simon, I got to say, but the only thing that's pissed me off more than that is when you said you didn't like Shadow of the Colossus.
That still hurts, doesn't it?
It's still sore, John. Yeah. There's a hole in my heart, John.
It's the Shadow of the Colossus, then it's the printer thing, and then 9/11, Tony. If you map out the 21st century.
There you go.
Angriest moments, yeah.
So, I've enjoyed the summer. So was it May last time we did this?
No, it was the end
very
of June.
quickly. End of June. Well, there you go. We had our heat wave and it sort of continued, and it's still fairly hot now actually. But yeah, I just had lots of lovely weekends lying in the garden, trying to tan and drinking gin and tonic, and watched some movies, and I did some reading, and yeah, I had a pretty nice summer. I've not gone on holiday or anything like that. I played some video games, hopefully.
You're making me very jealous of my previous life. My life I had until April, and now it's all babies and bottles and screaming and crying, and that's just the effect that it has on Kirsten. So the baby's even worse.
Yeah, pretty chilled summer for old Si, but yeah, pretty happy. Can't complain.
Excellent.
There's no material.
There's no content there.
Nothing unfortunate really happened to me. There were no.
See, that's the only reason we have that break, Simon, is because when you're left alone for a while, things happen to you, right? And it's hilarious. That's the only reason we have a gap between the podcasts, because it gives you time for shit to happen to Simon. So I'm disappointed, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, in years past, Simon, you have gone through multiple iPhones in a single season. You have broken bones, both by accident and through direct action on your own part.
Made yourself desperately ill on a number of food-related instances.
Made yourself desperately ill on a number of food-related instances. So this seems to have been dramatically mellow for you.
Yeah, but I think that in the same way that you might, if a tree expert was looking at a tree that seemed really healthy, but a tree expert would look at it and you'd say, "Can you have a look at my tree?" And they'd say, "Yeah, I will." And then they look at the tree, and you'd say, "That tree's right, isn't it? It's quite an old tree." And they're like, "Yeah, it looks like it's about 200 years old, and it's brown. Yeah, it's brown. It's got green leaves. Yeah. But you see this little fucking thing here? That means that tree's going to explode in 2 weeks." So in a similar way, I might outwardly seem okay, but earlier this week, I ordered some Pot Pourri. And of my own volition, I had Pot Pourri in my house, and
hang on. I thought I was the only 85-year-old on this podcast.
Yeah, so that sort of came up, and so I, of my own volition, bought Pot Pourri, and I guess it's just catching up with the 80s or something. And I had, it was nice red Pot Pourri and quite fragrant, but it sort of loses its flavour after a while.
Flavour? Are you eating it?
Having it with dip.
Lick them clean. So I ordered some more Pot Pourri from Amazon. That's where I like to get Pot Pourri from. And when it arrived yesterday or the day before at work, I went around the office and paraded it to all the people, like the 20-somethings, and some people older than that as well. And they were all quite And I sort of said, look, I'll smell this pot pourri because it really smelled like white chocolate and vanilla. And I thought, this smells delicious. I can't wait to install this. And I went around the office and showed everyone it. And they were all, nothing massively embarrassing happened. A couple of people called me out for living in the 80s and to get like some sticks that go in a jar with oil or something.
Yes.
A lava lamp.
And then I said, you mean incense? And they were like, no. It's not the 90s. Would have been closer. But I showed everyone the pot pourri, and they all said, yeah, it does smell nice. But when I thought about it last night, I thought that was actually a really embarrassing incident, but it's a slow burn of embarrassment. Because
like one of those
incense
sticks.
Like, yes. So what that looked like was a 30-something guy being really excited about getting pot pourri. And that's what it was. That's why it looked like that. So going back to the tree thing, well,
next month though, that you go into the office and you're like, guys, have you heard of doilies? Like, look at this. Now I can put my pot pourri on the doily.
He's figuring out how to crochet. That's what you've been doing in the garden, isn't it? Knitting whilst you're getting your tan, drinking your gin and tonic. And when you said gin and tonic, you meant a snowball, right? Or a small sherry.
Well, quite, yeah. Sort of Malibu or something. But no, Tia Maria. But so that's going back to the tree surgeon. It's like, he'd be like, someone's like, yeah, come and have a look at this Simon. This Simon's doing fine, isn't it? Yeah, it seems healthy. Yeah, it seems happy enough. Oh no, wait, look. It's got pot pourri. That's not right. That's not right.
It's rotten to its very core. I don't think I've ever. I don't think even old people are happy about pot pourri, are they? I mean, is that a thing? It's just. Do you know what I've wondered about? Like, old people have lots of shitty like tattoo ornaments on their sideboards and stuff. They have like all kinds of crap, don't they? Like little fucking frogs and shit like that. And I've always wondered, like recently. Well, I say recently, over the last 10 years, a joke has been unfolding in my house, which is like, I bought someone a shit garden ornament, and they bought me a shit garden ornament, and then it's kind of turned into an all-out fucking nuclear war of shit from Argos, like £10 from Argos. I've currently got a pink flamingo with like fake jewels on the side of it in my garden that somebody bought me, and I just suddenly wondered if maybe that's what happens to old people. It's a joke when they're young and cool. Oh, isn't it funny to have these shitty garden ornaments? And then it just gets out of hand, and then they're 80, and they've got 50 years of this shit accumulated, and that's why they can't get rid of it.
I think it might just be, like, when we're pensioners, it won't be like the little...
knick-knacks.
A little girl picking up a thing. It's going to be Funko Pops. And like the next generation are going to be going, those old people and those Funko Pops.
Yeah. Well, when
you die, it'll be them that they dump in the charity shop box.
So when Tony was saying, you people have, old people have like shelves just full of, bits of crap and stuff, and I'm looking around at all of my shelves. It's just that I'm going to do a visual thing. Sorry to the listener, but so
right, here we go. I'll talk us through it. Yeah.
I've got my shelf there, which has got all of my Mass Effect spaceships on, and I've got my shelf there, which has got all of my other Loot Crate related crap on. Oh look, there's a Benedict Cumberbatch there.
There's an Apple HomePod just kind of.
There's an Apple HomePod
in shot.
There. Hello, and then hi, that's me again. Hi, and then up there, I've got shelves just full of. I've got 3 meerkats.
Meerkats.
And I've got a Halo figure, and I've got a Golem, and there's just all kinds of nonsense. And do you know what?
I have a funny feeling that Kat's going to be right. That is going to be our porcelain figures.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
John's tour was like, today on Through the Keyhole. Another topical reference.
Keyhole.
Yeah. Could you, I mean, I've got this image of me dying, and Hannah's going through my stuff, and she finds all these round silver discs, and like, what the fuck are these things? DVD, never heard of it. What is this shit? I mean,
the equivalent of.
I like that. That's all you have to worry about. The girls go through my shit. Jesus.
Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to have a friend arranged to delete your hard drive, haven't you? That's essential.
Yeah, but they'll be like, what? Another crate of them under the bed? Jesus Christ!
How many can she use at one time? Don't answer the question.
I watched a comedian yesterday, and he was just doing this song, and it had a list of fun facts, and one of the facts was the most popular prosthetic limb in the world is the dildo.
Yep.
Oh, that's what Kat was talking about. Sorry, I was confused.
What do you think? You think she had a drawer full of Funko Pops next to her bed? But yeah, it's
But they're all Funko Pops of that Star Wars character whose head's really long. In various outfits, like dressed as a pirate and stuff.
A spiky outfit.
You have to send me a picture of that.
Oh, I will. Excellent. Yeah. I think I know his name as well. I'm not going to admit that I know his name.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't know. I don't think. But I suppose I've got some those Technic Lego sets. They could kind of be like something that kids would be like, "What the hell is that?"
Oh, but I thought you meant I was still on the dildo thing. No. I guess I could fashion one out of some Lego Technic. It flashes. It's got a mechanism.
But yeah, no, I've never got into the whole kind of collectible side of gaming. A lot of people are into that, aren't they? I've got a couple of collectible things, but not really a lot. It's not really. Never really got into that.
A lot of mine are gifts, so they have a bit of sentimental value to them.
Yeah, Simon is fallen out laughing. Something's happened.
I was just looking at this picture of this guy.
And we have to get that on the notes then, so that the listener can check that out as well.
So I've moved sort of sideways from collecting stuff, although I seem to still be acquiring black boxes with Loot Crate on, which I have 2 on the floor, which I haven't opened yet, which is really bad. And started making things. That was how I spent my summer. I made things. Like, I made ice axes. And I made
I saw these
and stuff.
You shared these on our Facebook page.
I did put them on the Facebook page. So
facebook.com/ballsonatray.
Thank you, Tony.
See, I'm a professional. I decided to come back and be more professional this time around. So this time I might not shit myself midway through the podcast.
Okay, well, that would be good, yeah. So it is on facebook.com/ballsonatray, the posts are up there. So I decided... I got this 3D printer at the start of the year, and it was, to make stuff, obviously. Oh, there he is. There's the fellow.
The Star Wars guy with the very long phallic head just appeared.
Yeah, so he's definitely I'm so going to download that and put
I like holding up the lightsaber. It's like it's a double-ended.
No,
not double. Like
Yes, we know. Leave it.
Jesus Christ. So I just wish there was some way that during the podcast we could make that image pop up when it popped up for us, for the listeners to see it.
We're gonna have to start videoing these things. So yes. Anyway,
I suppose one of those ends would go in the dark side, wouldn't it?
One of the absolutely. I do believe that was what Kat was alluding to.
Sorry, John.
Yeah. Yes. So I started. I got the 3D printer and I started making stuff. And I did the Mass Effect helmet, and I've done various bits and bobs. And I was flicking through. There's a website for those what don't know. It's called Thingiverse, and it's all 3D printable stuff. So you go through and you search for Mass Effect, for example, and it shows there's loads of 3D models of Mass Effect. So I've done some guns and bits and pieces off there. And I just typed in Tomb Raider. I don't know why, just cause.
Because you wanted a life-size Lara Croft.
Shut
I think I know.
Shut up. Just as an aside, they're on for most of the genres or games where there is a female protagonist, someone has done a nude. They're never very good, but someone has done one. It's just quite weird. I wouldn't print one of those off because that would be weird. So you can't get them big enough. Anyway, so I was looking through Tomb Raider stuff, and there was a model of her compound bow, which looked really cool. So I thought I will print that off. And the girl who'd done the original model had sort of added some bits and bobs, but it wasn't quite right. So I printed that off, and I printed some other stuff off, and I'm got it all put together and put a lighter on and bashed it all up and weathered it and stuff. And I think it looked pretty fucking good.
I think it looked fantastic. I was really impressed, actually.
Yeah. So, and I posted my make, because they're called makes. Apparently, I am a maker now. So I posted my make back onto Thingiverse, because that's what you do when you say, thanks very much, this was awesome, this is what I've done to it, and I remixed it because I added some different bits to it. And a journalist in South Africa, of all places, picks it up, and I became the 3D print of the day one day last week on hypertext.za. Which is kind of weird. But I also decided I was going to do the ice axes, because there was a model of the ice axe. And the model that was up there, again, it wasn't very good. So I cut it in Fusion 360 and remodeled it and reworked it and did some other stuff. So I did two models, one from the 2013 game and one from the 2015 game, which is also going to be used in this game. And they're both based off a real ice axe called the Rebel by a company called DMM, and I rang them up because they don't make it anymore. I said, can I get one of these? And they said, no, absolutely you can't. We had to scratch
they do still sell them, but they wouldn't sell one to John because of his record.
They'd heard. No, they stopped producing them, I think, back in 2006 or something. But they were approached by the film company.
Another tragic global warming casualty.
True, yes. But they were approached by the film company who made the latest Tomb Raider movie for 30 of these things. So they had to basically go out into the world and find 30 of their own product to buy back to give to the film company. They told
you to fuck off, but for a film company, they're like, oh yeah, no problem, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, hang on, I'm from Balls on a Tray, mate.
Exactly. I did drop your name, and there's something happened with the phone.
The featured maker on hypertext.za, mate. That's what you should have said. Fuck about with me, son. Do you know who I am?
Do you know who I am? Yeah, so I've been making stuff. And that's kind of actually how I spent most of my summer, was just making stuff.
It was really impressive, actually, all the weathering effects and stuff. And I intend to send John my balls to get him to polish those up for me.
We have exchanged some photos of Tony's balls, and I know just exactly how I'm going to paint them and rough them up and weather them. So that should be fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I should add that what it is Rocket League. They sell these like mini kind of pullback cars. I've been given a couple of them, but they come in basically a plastic version of the Rocket League ball, but it's just grey plastic. But it's quite detailed in terms of the pattern on it, but there's no colour. So John's going to hopefully paint it up and make it look a bit more realistic and make it look like a proper Rocket League ball. And that'll be one of my few gaming collectibles once I've got that sorted out. So that should be pretty cool. I'm quite looking forward to that. What I quite fancy is the idea that the Rocket League ball actually has like a light coming out of it. If I could rig up some kind of electronics inside it and then make it actually glow. Like just from the holes.
No,
that would
I've
be
got
pretty
some.
Neat, but,
as part of becoming a maker of things, I've started ordering just random bits of stuff from China, and I've got a whole bunch of LED control circuits and stuff on their way. So I can certainly light up your balls.
Oh, fantastic! I mean, that would make my day, you know. Simon's just shaking his head in disbelief. I mean, to be fair, that is probably worse than showing off Pot Pourri to an office full of young people.
It is. It's true. My current make, just to finish off my thing, then I'll get back in my hole and not say anything else, is I'm currently mid-print of a tall neck from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh, well, those are really kind of an interesting sort of looking creature. How tall is it going to be?
It's going to be about, well, that's just the neck bit, which goes on top of the body bit.
Oh, right. So it's going to be a good 2-3 foot?
I think it's going to be a good 2 foot high. So I'm quite pleased with that model's work.
I mean, the piece that John had in his hand there is about 12 inches. Or at least that's what I would tell my wife.
Yeah,
so it's going to be big.
That's right. Yeah, it's huge. So but obviously I'll once I've got it all together and made pretty and looking like it's a real thing, then I'll put some pictures up.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, I think the trick with that stuff is the painting and the weathering and stuff, and you seem to have quite a knack to that. So that's going to make it look really good, I think. Yeah. Excellent. How long have we been going on for, John? How long have we been on?
We've been on for, well, I started off a little early, so probably about 25 minutes.
All right, fair enough. Kat, do you want to say any more about your summer before we just talk about anything we've been playing?
I tried to show you my arm, didn't I? Like, I've rounded off the summer in misery because there's the Bournemouth Air Show each year, and I thought it'd be nice. I'll take the girls down to the beach and we'll watch the Dusk Show, where they have these aeroplanes that have like sparkles that come off of them, and they do like loops and stuff, and it looks really pretty. And then they have a little helicopter that had, I want to say, like 60, 70 pounds of explosives strapped to it.
Was this a suicide bomber attempting to take down the Bournemouth Air Show, or actually part of the Bournemouth Air Show?
Part of, and it's this. You couldn't see the helicopter. All you could see was all the fireworks coming off of it.
Oh wow, that sounds.
It was really cool. But the whole time we were there, like the midgies, I mean, I called them mosquitoes because what's the difference? Like, they're bastards.
They all look alike to you, racist.
They do all look alike. These ones look like full-on mosquitoes, and they were pretty much ignoring the girls and all landing on me. And a couple of days later, after a shower, they started literally like every 10 minutes, another one popped out, and it looks like I have like the pox or something. It's.
When you say popped out, do you mean hatched out from under your skin, or?
Don't say that. No. No. Yeah, because I've got this like divot in the middle, and it's.
They weren't biting you; they were impregnating you. There's gonna be like aliens, and like they're come bursting out of your chest.
That'll be it. Thank you.
But in terms of I mean, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard people say that like different blood types, some type of creatures prefer different blood types. I don't know if there's any truth in that, but there definitely seems to be that there are some people go to countries with lots of mosquitoes and they just get eaten to shit, and other people get left alone. Maybe nothing to do with blood type, but there's definitely something. Like maybe it's a smell or something that comes off you. I mean, but yeah, they love certain people, so you appear to be popular.
I mean,
you won't be anymore. Now you've just been massively racist about their entire kind.
I've never had it like this before. So I'll get like the odd bite. But yeah, now they've affected me. I waged war. Like, I killed so many, they'd land on me and then they'd just death. And I'd be like smacking them out of the sky. Like, there's this beautiful air show going on in front, and you got this one person in the crowd just like doing that.
Just random Mick Jagger impression at the front of the crowd. No, the one thing that I wanted to ask you about, Kat, because you put it on your notes, and it's something that I actually watched as well. Kat says in notes, got addicted to prepper/off-grid shows. I watched on YouTube, there's a channel called Ancient Technology. It's really good. Basically, he's an Australian guy. He's called Blue Shorts Guy, I think. He's obviously got a proper name. That's not what he was christened. He has a real name. But he doesn't say anything. There's no music playing. It's basically just him doing stuff, just using what's around him, sort of, mud and stones and sticks and stuff like that. And it's absolutely fascinating. I sat for 3/4 of an hour. There's no commentary and there's no background music. There's nothing. It's just him and sound effects and fire crackling. And I watched him build a wood house with mud and stone walls and a tiled roof, and I watched him make all the tiles and fire them in a kiln and everything, and it was all just done in the wires, and it was absolutely fascinating. So I've fallen into that camp as well. I find it amazing. So yes, I just wanted to acknowledge that.
And I've you've got like the more sensationalized like preppers and stuff on Netflix. I mean, I quite like, if I was loaded and had a lot of free time, then I would possibly prep for fun, because there is something a bit exciting. I don't want the world to end because it would be horrific, but imagining it when you know you're safe is exciting. So like I started prepping it in our old place where we had like this little door that went out into the eaves, and there was loads of space, and I started like stashing water and tinned food, and it actually, what was it that happened this year? Like, and we were running out of bread or milk,
Love Island?
And
that's probably the biggest disaster yet this year. Yeah.
But like something happened, and it showed how easy that, because what's that saying that we only have enough food for 3 days to actually feed
the beast from the east.
Importing.
The beast from the east, was that it? Everyone was panicking there with bad snow and that earlier in the year.
Yeah. And then when we had the heat wave, and there was all this talk about, will there be water shortages when it continues? And I was thinking, I've got a good amount of water here, suckers. So there's like real life, and but yeah, it's just like, it's the thought of it. But the most recent one that I've been watching is Alaskan bush people, and I've said the last couple of weeks I've just gone through. They're very short seasons, but I think there are maybe like 6 or 7 of them. And these kids, this whole family, were like grown up in the bush of Alaska, and just the stuff that they can do, a bit like John was saying, where they go to the junkyard and the dumps and stuff, and come back with all this rubbish, but then make like a hot tub. They'll rig up an alarm that goes off if a bear comes near, and all this stuff. Like they build the house and find the lumber, and there's something really nice about it. And when I was in Cornwall, and I was like, I need to get. I've lived in a town now for quite a while, so I don't even have a garden or anything. So I'm like craving nature. I was out in Cornwall, and we were on the moors, and it was beautiful. And I was like, maybe I need to move somewhere a bit more remote. And then I went to like put a picture on Twitter and didn't have a connection. I was like, oh, fucking hell. So I'm really conflicted. There's half of me that wants to go like a full hermit, crazy lone person who like survives off berries and hunts squirrels. And then the other part of me is like, but I'd also need a PlayStation.
Yeah, and decent broadband.
You were saying earlier about being quite kind of like, happy. They're sort of weirdly happy about the idea of like, the world coming to an end and you're sort of cozied up in your bunker. I just got this image of you sitting in your little bunker just with a big smile on your face going, John's dead. Tony's dead. Simon's dead. Woohoo! Ain't no party like a cat pet party.
And to think they mocked me.
And then you look across to your little pot of potpourri and think, oh, I miss Simon.
Simon can have a spot if he wants. If he brings some nice potpourri that smells of white chocolate, then you're in. John, you've been quite nice to me as well. You can have a spot.
Thank you.
And we'll take Hannah.
Moving on.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean,
if she's not a baby anymore.
Yeah, not a baby.
Sorry, if she's a baby.
At least some of my genes will live on then.
Well, you said
to make it even worse for Tony, I'll swap places with Kirsten as well, so Kirsten can go in the bunker and survive. That means Tony has to try and make his way with me in the apocalypse. Like
that would be
from Last of Us.
I say that would be a kind of buddy movie I'd watch. Me and Simon bimbling away about the UK in a post-Brexit wasteland.
Simon while I'm in a safe bunker with Kat, Kirsten, and Hannah. That sounds good.
John, it's down to you to repopulate the world.
Simon's quest for potpourri. You're like, Simon, we've got to find fuel, shelter, and water. But there's some potpourri in the nearby Asda. Can you buy potpourri in Asda? I don't know.
Of course you can.
Yeah, little bags of it by the air fresheners and stuff.
You've given yourself away as a secret Simon. So I guess we should probably actually talk about some video games, just for a radical departure from the norm. So, Kat, you want to... what you been up to? What you been playing? Go on, you start us off.
I have. If we go the furthest back in time, that would be the next update for No Man's Sky, which I suddenly got excited about, even though I was one of many who played No Man's Sky for about 2 weeks at launch and never went back to it. Because I got bored, I guess.
Yeah, that's how I was with it. Yeah, I got excited about it, bought it, like literally on the day it came out because everyone was on about it, and then got bored of it really quickly and stopped.
Yeah, and I thought, well, maybe multiplayer will make it quite fun because you go off to these like either quite deadly planets together and can help each other out. You could build a base and make a nice little home on a planet and discover creatures. I was thinking, this sounds really cool, actually. So I was looking forward to it. And it was a free update, at least. So it's not like you had to take the risk and pay for it. It came out, and at the time I was over the summer I did some Twitch streaming with my eldest daughter, just for a bit of fun. And I thought we could stream us trying it out together. And it put her off. She's like really clear that she must never play No Man's Sky again. So that's just the reaction you want from a new player.
Why?
They'd overhauled loads. So people that hadn't been playing for the last couple of years had no idea. I had loads of in my inventory. I had loads of materials that just weren't used anymore. So I just had to scrap them all. I wasn't sure then what the replacement was. I could hear my daughter saying, oh, it says I need oxygen. I was like, I don't know where you find oxygen. It wasn't very clear. I think it was from a little flower in the end, like a little red flower or something, blue flower. So it sort of threw you into the deep end without an option for just a little tutorial. I know gamers don't really like big, long, boring tutorials, but just something that goes, hey, do you want us to catch you up on what's changed? Because I would have really appreciated that.
Previously on No Man's Sky.
One of the things I forgot for a long time was, because there were two different buttons that cause almost like a scanning type effect. And one you click and it just sort of scans your surroundings and might show you something interesting. I think the other one, I haven't played this for a few weeks. I think the other one, then you scan plants and animals and it gives you the chance if you want to rename them. And that's, I'd completely forgotten about that for quite a while. It was only when I was playing on my own a couple of days later, I was like, oh yeah, scanning stuff. That's my own fault though, that's not the game's fault. But one of the major downsides was just trying to get together. So it didn't spawn us together. It put Mina onto her own tutorial type planet, which was a toxic planet that was trying to kill her. So she was just trying to get the beginning quests done, just to tutorial, I guess.
Yeah. And
she died about 4 or 5 times, just kept dying, just trying to get through this tutorial, because it doesn't default you onto a nice planet. It's just no, it's fucking nuclear and there's fireballs and you will freeze to death at the same time as the fire there. And it was just she was on the worst possible planet. And it's there's a beast that's going to eat you if you go outside your ship. So she had really rough luck.
The planet Hull.
Yes. And,
there's another location scratched off the
then
tour.
I was off flying around, landed on a planet. Then we were just trying to get together, and she was trying to travel to my planet, so I stayed quite still. And she was like, where are you? And I was like, I'm on planet Zerganos, or whatever it was called. And she's trying to fly down to me. We did eventually meet up, but the issue was that, and I saw it as well, once I looked up, there was 2 waypoints for her on different planets. So it's which no, I think one was up in space, I think one was on a planet, and I was it was just so much of a faff. But then we found each other, saw some sort of crab with tentacles, and went, "Ooh, we found a creature." Because then we lost each other quite quickly after that. Because it's on those sorts of games where you can just easily go off in different directions. It's like if you say, yes, let's play GTA together, and you're only in free mode, and then after a while you're just off doing different things.
Yeah.
So it was similar to that. I played a bit more on my own over the next couple of days, and I just wanted to find a really cool planet. I wanted to find a creature where I could screenshot it and put it on Twitter and go, whoa. And all I would do was go down to a planet, it would be toxic and boring. I'd go back up, find another planet, same thing. I'd warp to another system, same boring planets. And I think on like the third day, I landed on a planet that had this. I put a video on Twitter of it, and it was like this. I thought it was a plant at first. It was like a column with like, was it tentacly things, and then different size eyeballs. I'd never seen anything like it before, like at all, that people have shared. And it was quite friendly as well. It didn't attack. It had some spikes on it. Really nice. It had grass, it had running water. So I finally found a nice planet, and I've never gone back. It felt like that was all I had to do, was to find a nice planet. And it turns out that I'm not that into, because everything needs to be refined. So you've got these refiner machines, and you try and remember what you need to refine to turn it into what you need. So you've got these different like carbons and different materials that you pick up, and then you might need to refine it again. And it's like, oh, it was just such a faff to do anything. It was like crafting within crafting within crafting, but not in a fun way, or well, not for me personally. So yeah, so I never really went back. Maybe one day I will, to see if the blobby tentacle monster thing's still there.
Did you name it Producer John?
I didn't name it yet. But he is cute. I'll see if I can find the picture, the video, and send it to you. He was like,
that sounds slightly harsh. I mean, John does wear his 12 eyeballs rather well.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so that was like game one. So that wasn't very successful. I was still dabbling with Overwatch as well. Cooked 2 came out in August.
Yeah.
Fairly recently. It's like Overcooked 1. You like Overcooked 2?
I picked up Overcooked 2, and it's very much like that, isn't it? It's kind of more of the same, but with a few extra mechanics, like being able to throw ingredients around, which is actually really good fun. Add something to it. Yeah, the
throwing's good. There's definitely 2 types of people with Overcooked. There's the people that are just like, let's just do it. we'll figure it out, we'll do it. And then there's me people who are like,
planners. I
will do this job, you will do this job, because it works. And like, luckily we've been playing it on a Friday night with Chris, Fnog and Symes, and luckily we do, like, we'll try it once, work, and then we will slip into roles. But it's I get a bit stroppy because
you're the moniker. You're the moniker of the group, aren't you? Like, it'll be more fun if it's organised.
Because I feel that once you have your job, unless you've asked someone else and said, oh yeah, I'm not going to get to that pan, can someone get it, which is understandable, then that's your job. So when someone comes along and say, I'm chopping tomatoes and I'm chopping cheese, and that's my job. If someone else comes along and starts trying to chop cheese, no, don't. That's my fucking cheese. Don't chop my cheese. You're gonna, like, because then potentially their job gets missed and someone else is yelling, can someone chuck me some meat? And that was, the meat person is now chopping my cheese. So then I have to go off and get the meat, and then something else that, like, and it just like snowballs. So I'm a bit like, that's my job. Stop doing my job. But I'm sure the guys are having fun. Really enjoying playing with me.
Check out Henry Ford over here.
I was similar with the girls as well, but that's even worse because I can get stroppy with the girls and I can tell them off if they get stroppy with me, but I'm allowed because I'm their mum. So I can be a bit like, you're supposed to be doing this. So, like, but I can't get quite that bossy with the guys on a Friday night.
I would just tell Chris to fuck off. I mean, that's kind of what most of this podcast is about. So that's basically fine.
Chris tries his best.
Well, yes. Yeah. I've got. He's very trying. I've got Overcooked 2 myself, and I haven't really played. I only played a few levels of it. I played a few levels with Kirsten when Hannah's been quiet, and I played a few levels with Symes. But I really want to play it with like a bigger group. But got a local co-op day going on sometime soon, and I get a load of people coming around, and I'm looking forward to trying it out and really getting into it with them when everyone's there, like in person, because I think that's the best way to play Overcooked. Even now, that's the other thing you forgot to mention, that Overcooked 2 now actually lets you play online, doesn't it? Whereas Overcooked 1 was purely
good point.
Couch co-op. So that's probably the biggest improvement to the game.
In person, you can throw some punches as well. So.
Yeah,
you can actually just play it for real in your kitchen. Just like get 4 of you in your kitchen. Be like, right, we need to make burgers for lunch, and then do it all between you.
Like in Overcooked, you can have like 2 people chopping the same onion. Imagine trying to do that. No, what I was going to say is, oh no, it's gone. I was going to say something that was witty and incisive.
I'm sure.
To the point, and it's completely gone. Oh, that's quite annoying.
I've been waiting for you to do that.
For the last 4 years.
4 series, yeah.
If I start talking about my last game, it will come back to you.
Yeah. Don't worry. Okay. Well, Simon, should we mix it up and we come back to Kat in a bit? What have you been playing?
I played a fair few games. Just Cause 3 was on PlayStation Plus, so I had that in my library, and I decided to give it a go, and I completed it, and I think what did it was I bought a while back. I knew I had the game on PS Plus, but there was this like the DLC was reduced, and it was like £3, and you got all the DLC for the game, and the DLC had like a mech robot thing, and I thought, oh, that sounds fun. So I bought the DLC, and then so when I got the game, I thought, well, the game was free, and I started playing it and thought, this is awful. I don't want to play this. But I thought, well, I've got the DLC, so now I'm going to play through and see the DLC stuff. And it actually turned out that the DLC, like the mech robot thing's actually a lot of fun to blast everything apart, and it kind of breaks the game because you can, like, when you've got the mech in Just Cause 3, you can, like, it has this big magnetic arm, and you can kind of, like, pull everything towards you. So if there are like 4 helicopters in the sky attacking, you can just hold down left trigger and it sucks all 4 helicopters towards you, and they kind of stuck in midair, and then you kind of fire them at whatever object you want, and that's just kind of fun. And you can just you can phone and ask for the mech to be dropped in outside an enemy base and just hop in it. So that's kind of fun. But I remember when we talked about Saints Row versus Grand Theft Auto, and like how Saints Row just doesn't feel right. Like the way it plays and the way the character moves and the way the cars drive. Like Just Cause is really like that. I played Just Cause 2 a lot on the Xbox 360, and I'd kind of forgotten. I think that was so long ago that standards are almost better now. When you play Just Cause 3, like the driving a car is horrible. It's like really unresponsive, and it's not a fun game to play. I'm interested to see what they do with Just Cause 4, but. So I played through that, and it was okay, but it's just not that good. I mean, the game world's incredible, like how large it is. It's worth booting it up and having a look at that. But
do you know what I mean? For me, Just Cause 3, I kind of really enjoyed it despite itself. It's like what you can do is so much fun that it doesn't really matter that the driving's kind of shit, and when you start doing the major demolition and like destroying huge buildings and stuff, which is kind of the most fun to be had in the game, the frame rate just absolutely dies. But it's kind of really fun despite all that. It's like, if it was made really, really well and was really polished as well, it would be awesome. But I just really enjoyed it, even though it was quite janky. It was so much fun that it kind of made up for being janky. And I think Saints Row did that to a degree as well. It was kind of shit and janky, but did so many mad things. It was kind of fun.
See, I think that I agree. I would substitute the word fun for diverting.
Do you remember, Simon, our late night session on Saints Row?
Yeah.
And when it was like a really depressing.
we didn't quite have the ability to complete one of the missions.
we were like, I think we were both probably overtired, and we'd gone past the initial chatty, energetic stage of gaming, and we were like, pretty much like one more mission, and it was a mission where you have to go around with this machine slinging shit. And we were both tired, and we were doing this stupid quest that involved like covering people or businesses and shit, and it was just like that stuck with me because we both seemed kind of miserable doing it. Like we should have gone to bed like an hour and a half ago, but we're like clinging on, and it's just half silence as we're doing this shit mission.
Just grim-faced hurling shit into the passers-by spaces, going, "This is a fun mission."
I do remember that. I don't think we ever went back to Saints Row. I can't.
No, I don't think so.
It's one of these things where it's like, well, this is wacky. Yeah, this is wacky, and it's sort of like after 5 seconds you think, yeah, but this doesn't feel very good to play. But I don't know. So that was Just Cause 3, and then I also recently completed Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I thought that was really good. Which one
was that? The one after the reboot.
One. Okay. Yeah. So there's a bit in that where it's kind of set in Siberia, and for the most part, and when you're in Siberia, the first big open area you get to, it's like a gulag or like a refinery or something. It's kind of in the snow and rusty and stuff, and there's just like loads of stuff around to find, and you kind of, the optional challenge tombs are they're in the first game as well, and you kind of always want to find them because they're quite good puzzles and they're really interesting environments to explore. But
yeah, I think they're the best bits of those games.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I got a real kick out of exploring the worlds, like to the point, and because it's such a good looking game as well, and it's on PS4 Pro, so I think looked even better because of that. And I was actually purposely walking in one of these games, which is just like almost a collectathon is the way I play it, but I'm walking because it's so, even in Horizon for the most part I was charging around, sprinting from place to place, but in Tomb Raider I was just walking around because I was like, this is really atmospheric, this looks beautiful, I'm quite happy. So I really rate that game. I think it was quite long, and I think it's probably over long for me in terms of like the main campaign. I did do my usual thing of like, oh come on, I'm kind of bored of this now. But that first like 10 hours of it I thought was great. I really liked that game. And I just started playing The Witcher at the weekend, The Witcher 3, which is a game that I had for a really long time. Someone bought it for me, and I've always really wanted to play it, but it seemed so big. You know, that thing where it's like, I'm not going to start that because it's like 100 hours.
Yeah. Like you don't want to start watching a 3-hour film at 11 o'clock. Yeah.
Sort of, yeah. And so I don't want to start playing a 100-hour video game when I'm like 34. Achieve anything in my life. But I've got the Pot Pourri now, so I thought, well, it's time to start The Witcher.
Time to settle down.
So that's a really cool game. Like it's really reminds me of Game of Thrones in that it's a fantasy setting, but the world it's set in is it's gritty in some ways, like Game of Thrones, but it's also got magic and dragons. Well, I'm not sure if it's got dragons. We've got mythical beasts and things
like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it's a lot like it, and it's also got lots of sex and things. It's got realistic elements.
Hang on, I thought you said it had lots of sex. That doesn't sound very realistic for my life. I've done it once.
Yeah,
mate, once.
One time, by accident.
Into a cup.
Yeah, so it's really, The Witcher's really, and the other really striking thing about it, well, there's two other really striking things about it. First off, it's huge. Like, I've played a lot of sort of RPG games, and the actual open world is big, but it's not like really densely packed or even that interesting in itself. Like the actual landscape, it kind of is and it isn't. Like the backdrop is really cool, but and that'll come on to a second point to talk about. But like the lore and the kind of the amount of quests and cutscenes, like so many tiny little incidental side quests or like tasks will lead to you picking up a note, and then when you read the note you get a quest, and when you do the quest it's actually like got full cutscenes. It's a really interesting moral conundrum maybe or whatever, and this stuff's just hidden. Like it's so dense. I've never seen a game, I must be about 10 hours in, right? I've never seen a game that's so densely packed with quite high quality quests, I suppose. So that's very impressive. The second thing that's really striking about it is best way to put it is backdrops. So it's a really good looking game, but the way it's animated and the way the combat is and the way Geralt, the main character, kind of controls is a bit weird. Like probably the most illustrative example is like if there's an object you're endlessly it's an RPG, so you're endlessly pressing X to loot bodies or chests or plants or whatever. But if he kind of has like a dead zone for movement. It's a bit like GTA in that it's not like the most fluid. Like there's a slight delay in his movements when you press the stick, then he moves like a second later. But you have to be lined up exactly with whatever you're trying to pick up. And because there's a second delay or whatever, it's really frustrating sometimes just picking stuff up in the game, which is a bit weird.
That is a frustrating thing in a lot of games, actually. It's sort of pretty hard to get right, it seems. So many games you just spend a lot of time peering at the ground trying to pick things up, and it's just too fiddly.
Absolutely, and I think, but if you're coming from Tomb Raider, which felt really good to play, like it's a really nice feeling game, that's pretty noticeable to me. But that's sort of a tangent, I suppose. So the way the game feels and animates isn't that great in gameplay, I don't think. The cutscenes are really well acted, and the graphics are really good. But again, the animation I wouldn't say is absolutely top notch, but it's kind of nitpicking. But the point I'm meandering towards is the kind of backdrop to the world and the weather going on is it's like it's very impressive and it's very striking and it's quite unique and so it's kind of stylized, or what's the word? Exaggerated, right? So, like, if I'm on a hill surrounded by trees, like I'm in a forest, when I look up at the sky, it's kind of dense grey cloud with rays of light coming through, and there's this billowing wind sound whistling through the trees, and the trees are all going all around me, and there's just, you can almost see the wind and the leaves flapping about, and it just looks like nothing I've ever seen, and it doesn't feel real. It's not like I'm saying this game looks amazingly real. It's just it has a real sense of place, like it's really atmospheric, and that's been really striking so far. So I think I get why people really like the game. I think it plays well. I don't think it plays great. Something like Skyrim, which I don't think feels amazing, but like Skyrim felt a lot better to run around in and do combat in. But the world of The Witch is very impressive, and that like atmosphere it creates it's very cool.
So with that in mind, do you think the TV show is going to be any good? Because one of the notes that I made is I don't know if you'd know that Henry Cavill's been cast as Geralt. So we've got our hero.
Who's making the show?
It's Netflix.
It's Netflix. Yeah. So I think interesting. So The Witcher is based on a series of books by a Polish writer, and the game picks up after the events of the books, I think. So I don't know what they'll do with the TV show in terms of like lore and where it lands in. And, like, to be absolutely clear, I don't care at all. But I suppose it's interesting as to what they'll do there, because a lot of people have read the books, especially in Poland, but I don't know that the reason that TV show is being made is because The Witcher 3 was a huge success. So you'd have thought it would follow on from that, but who knows? But it's a very rich lore, which I think borrows a lot from Game of Thrones in terms of tone, I think, more than anything else. But it also borrows from Lord of the Rings. Like, you've got elves and dwarves knocking about, which is goes a bit further than Game of Thrones, apart from the notable exception. But yeah, it's I suppose a different type of dwarf, I suppose. But point I'm trying to make is it has the potential to be really quite cool. I think like a TV show of that, because Game of Thrones is pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean,
but you'd have to spend a fair amount of money on it, and it'd have to be well written. Otherwise, it's just going to come across as a bit campy, I think.
Because I've seen a couple of Netflix like own movies. I've had these kind of really interesting worlds, and the movies have been just sort of okay. But I've just thought, I'd like to see more in that world. Like, like they've set up this really interesting world, and then we've had a relatively short story in it. I'd like to see more of that. And I guess The Witcher could be like that. You played the game, now you want to see more of that world, and it could be pretty interesting if that's the kind of world you like.
They've done some pretty good book conversions. That's not the right word. Adaptions. The Expanse series was a set of books which I've read, and they modelled that world really well. Expanse is set in and around our solar system, between here, Mars, various Jupiter colonies, and the asteroid belt. So there's lots of spaceship stuff, which was really well done, and it's very big. The other one they did was Altered Carbon.
Oh, I really enjoyed that, yeah.
Which was, frankly, the visualization that they did on screen was actually better than the visualization which was put across in the book. It was just a fantastic production. So I'm thinking they've got the monies. I mean, Netflix have got pretty much all of the monies between them and Disney, basically. So I think that if they want to, they can certainly invest in that level of production to get the look that they want. I'm just interested to see it. I have to hold my hand up. I played The Witcher. Was it the second one? The Kings, when he's after the guy who's killing all the Kings. Yeah, something like that. I played that one for about 15 minutes, and then got extraordinarily confused in my first fight because there was so much stuff that I needed to get a handle on in terms of elements and.
You're like, how do I equip the Pot Pourri?
Just to that level, and it was just like all I want to do is poke the guy with my sword. But I can't apparently just do that. I need to do other stuff as well, and you have to prepare moves before you can do moves, and that means that and it was all very complicated and too complicated. But to Simon's point, the world that it lives in, I actually kind of liked, and the walking from where I was to where I got to, I actually quite enjoyed that process because it was wild. I mean, it was
the
a
finest
wild
15 minutes
landscape.
of video gaming you ever had.
Absolutely, yeah. But I think the way it came across to me is it was kind of hyper real. It was just reality with an extra couple of layers of reality on top of it. It was just everything, like you said, was just exaggerated. So the wind, it wasn't just windy, it was windy, and the trees didn't just move, they whipped, and everything was just slightly, if not more than slightly, over the top, and it made it feel like it was familiar but different enough to be different, if you know what I mean. Like Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider, the Uncharted series, it's kind of rooted in our world. It's familiar. We can sort of say, oh yeah, I know where that could be, or whatever. And all of those games tend to be like that. It was familiar enough that you knew what the stuff was, but it was different enough that you knew it wasn't here. And that was kind of what I liked about it.
It's like a dreamlike quality, maybe.
Yeah.
I recommend that you maybe try Witcher 3 because the combat's a lot more hack and slash, and I've not had to prepare too much. I think I've got a handle on the systems, and the advice I had was to bump it up a difficulty setting higher, but I haven't done that. I figured let's just get through this because it's going to be quite a long game. But it's got a lot of the Mass Effect Dragon Age stuff with choices in dialogue and romancing.
All right, that's the Wild Hunters
hot
Witcher
chicks.
3.
Yeah, so interestingly, they justify the hot chicks. I've read some articles about this, and not entirely because I googled Witcher hot chicks.
Not entirely.
But no, I read some articles about it, or it came up in the lore, I think. And the principal female characters are like very beautiful, just like Geralt, the main character, is a very sexy man. But the justification is that they're sorceresses, and part of their becoming a sorceress is they have glamours or whatever to make themselves look more beautiful, a bit like the Red Woman in Game of Thrones. But yeah, it's so they kind of had a stab at justifying it, but yeah,
or like Snapchat filters.
Well, I was going to say, or like as has been hinted, the Asari in Mass Effect, because the lore is that the Asari only look like the way that they do because we're human, and if you are one of the other species, the Asari look more like you than human.
So if you're like a sort of gelatinous column with 12 eyes.
If you were a Hanar, for example, then an Asari would look like an attractive Hanar. Yes, absolutely. Or a Turian or whatever. So yes, the thing about Asari is they always look attractive to every species because they present themselves as an attractive version of that species.
When John talks about Mass Effect, I kind of feel like, I don't know, like if I was trying to describe my favourite video game to my mum, I just know that she would be kind of polite and not say anything horrible, but she would be like not having a clue what's going on. And I'm like, oh, the Turians, I see the Asari, okay. Right, yeah, very nice. Should we have some tea?
I've got my arms crossed now.
He's in the defensive posture. Okay. I just wanted to just mention what I've been playing a bit of. Obviously, having a baby in the house is kind of difficult to find long sessions to play games. So I've been playing a little bit of everything, but I've been recently playing what I'm calling the whole genre. Which is, there's a game that just came out called Donut County, which is basically a game about where you play it as a whole and you move around and you swallow things up into the whole. And then you got this whole kind of story with a raccoon and a kind of teenage girl, and you just go around the world. Oh, sorry, punched the microphone by accident. And you go around the world and just kind of like sucking things into your hole, and just like the hole gets bigger the more things go into it, and it gets bigger and bigger, and then you kind of pull more into it. And Donut County is a kind of one of these short games that takes you maybe a couple of hours, 2-3 hours tops to finish. It's just really nicely made. It's got lovely music, and you just go through these little sections, just like swallowing up more and more stuff till you get bigger and bigger. You got to figure out how to like kind of get enough stuff to make your hole big enough to swallow up everything. And there's some little puzzles in there. It's all quite mild. It's one of these lovely kind of mild games like, say, Journey or something like that, where you got to play it and you really enjoy it, and you'll play it perhaps once, maybe twice. And it's a few quid, and you just have a nice time, and it's such a lovely experience. And Donut County is like that. It's really fun. But before I even played that, I was playing a game on iOS called Hold.io. And now, as I understand it, Donut County has been in the making for absolutely years. And they showed off some videos of this concept of you swallowing things in a hole. So these guys on iOS came along and said, oh, that looks like fun. And they've just made a game where you're kind of battling against other holes. You start off really small, like you're just about big enough to swallow a person and maybe a bollard and like a fire hydrant. And you kind of go around this city, and then when you swallow a few things, you get a bit bigger, and you kind of step up, you get bigger and bigger. And by the end of it, you're swallowing entire buildings, and you can swallow the other holes if you're bigger than them and stuff. So it's kind of really, it's a 2-minute game. You can just pick up and play it on iOS. You play it with one hand. All you need to do is move one thumb around to steer your hole around, and you're just kind of swallowing up the entire city by the end of it. It's great fun.
You know what it sounds like?
What?
Sorry, it just reminded me of Xbox 360 arcade game, The More.
Oh, okay.
You had this like monster, like that mixed with a Katamari game.
Yes,
is the kind of vibe I'm getting.
It's a Katamari Damacy game, basically with a hole instead of a ball. You instead of rolling up the entire world, you drop everything into the hole. But there's in the whole IO game, you've got this competitive. It's a free game. You've got adverts between each round, which is a bit annoying. I actually pay to get rid of the adverts because I've been playing it quite a lot. But yeah, it's just this really fun game. But then I read that they kind of nicked it off of Donut County. But it's interesting because they've come up with an almost entirely different kind of game. It's like weird that there's 2 games about swallowing things in a hole. And I don't know if they're deliberately being smutty, but in Whole.io, some of the loading screens say things like, start with smaller items to expand your hole. And I'm like, this is like a beginner's fisting club. And it's just like, but it's actually a really fun game. You can even play it local multiplayer, so you could get it on your phone and play it with somebody else locally. It's over Bluetooth and stuff, and you just battle it. It's on an older iOS device, it really kills it actually, and even on my iPhone X or 10 or whatever you want to call it, even on that, you feel the whole device getting really hot. It's like when you are sort of zoomed out and your hole gets bigger and bigger, and you're like the size of a tower block, you can suck a whole tower block down, then you can still see the individual people running about on the ground and stuff. So it's quite, there's a lot going on, and it does tend to sort of kill your iOS device quite quickly in terms of battery. And on Kirsten's iPhone SE, which is based on 2-3-year-old technology, it's a bit flaky with the frame rate and stuff, but it's fun, and it's it's basically free if you can put up with adverts, or a couple of quid if you can't. But I've been really enjoying that. It's great because I can literally have the baby on my lap, bottle in her mouth, and I can play a couple of quick games. It's also good on the toilet at work.
You shouldn't be taking the baby into the toilet at work, mate.
I'll check them out, because I'm often plugged in because I will be resting but not actually sleepy with my CFS.
Yeah.
I know sofa sales. Every time I say CFS, I think of DFS now.
Half price, yeah.
But yeah, because I'm plugged in the whole time, so I don't have to worry about the battery running down. I do have an SE, but
yeah, I think Kirsten says when she's plugged it in, it seems to run better as well. I don't know if that's because it's sort of able to use full power, but yeah, Hold.io is a bit of fun, and I say a Donut County is a 5 on iOS, and it's a few hours, and it's got a bit more to it, a bit of story, and there's like boss battles and a few little things to it. But it really is just a relatively short game, so don't go into it expecting a lot. But you know what iOS is like? You charge £5 for something on iOS, and the people in the reviews are fucking livid. I've never spent £5 on anything to play on my £800 iOS device. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's just ridiculous. People are like, it says in the description of Donut County, Donut County is the product of 6 years solo work for developer so-and-so, blah, 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 who also worked on the Unfinished Swan and another game I really, really like. Anyway, so
Monument Valley.
No, it's not Monument Valley. It's another one like Unfinished Swan, that kind of thing. I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, yeah, it says that, so there's a description. Worked on this for 6 years, and then it's £5. And there's all these arseholes raging about, it's a bit short for £5. Yeah. Like, fuck's sake. But the funny thing is as well, it's on PlayStation as well for £10. So you obviously thought, well, I can't charge £10 on iOS because people will think that's mental. So it's half the price of basically the same game. And you don't need, it's not fiddly enough that you need a control pad to play it. You can just play it with your finger on the screen on iOS, on an iPad or an iPhone, just as well as you can on a PlayStation 4, and it's half the price, and people will still whinge about it because it's iOS, and everyone's been trained to believe that everything should be free on iOS, which I find quite frustrating. But yeah, so I'd recommend both of those in different ways. Donut County is good fun, and you can play up to 8 players all together in a group, so when I get my couch co-op day, I might try and get a few people to play that on their phones on the Bluetooth mode. So, because it's good fun.
I've had a double rarity this week.
Oh yeah.
Where I've started a game which is new. It's out this week. I always either play old games or Overwatch. I'm so careful with what games I get.
Yeah.
The other of the double whammy is that it's on PC. Like, I'm playing a game that's not on console. I know we're quite PlayStation heavy usually, but we're covering PC and phones and everything this episode.
Wow, yeah, it's all changed. I
was talking on Twitter to Zero Mark about 2 Point Hospital, and it really, really appealed to me because although I played more Theme Park, I did dabble a bit with Theme Hospital, and I just like those kind of sims and building and trying to keep everyone happy.
Interesting, you've never taken it over into your actual life.
No. This is just I also like murder stuff in video games. I don't take that over into real life. So I was discussing it because I thought, I have like sort of fairly basic laptop, and I'm thinking, I don't know if it would run. It was about £22, I think. And I was like, should I just take the gamble? And then I heard about the refund system anyway, if you play for less than 2 hours on Steam. So I was sort of like umming and erring, and then a little DM comes up, and some kind soul who's seen the conversation said they had a spare key for it. So I was like, awesome. Like, it better work now that I'm using someone's key for the game. But yeah, it's pretty much just I say like a scrubbed up, more modern version of Theme Hospital. And it's, I think some of the devs actually worked for, is it Bullfrog who did?
Yeah, Bullfrog did the original theme games, Theme Parks, Theme Hospital. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually got some of them that worked on it and up. And I was like, this is just going to swallow my life. Thankfully, it worked. I think the graphics are slightly fuzzy and it might be a bit juddery when I move around because it's when I looked up, I didn't meet the minimum requirements, when I checked on that website. But it runs and it's fine. And I've actually ran other games that didn't meet the minimum requirements, so I now don't trust that website to tell me the truth. But yeah, it's been really. Well, it started off really fun, the first couple of levels. I think I just completed the third one today, and I make myself stop either after so long or once I 3-star, the earlier ones, once I 3-starred the levels, because I don't have a proper PC set up and I'll be all hunched or, like laying back in bed with a laptop trying to game, and I'll end up with all these like extra pains and stuff in my body where it's not ergonomic. Is that the word?
That is the word, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is the word, big word for me. And yeah, so it's been it's been good. We had one of the first illnesses discovered is lightheadedness, and it's these little people walking around with a light bulb glowing on their head, and you have to build a special lab where they unscrew the light bulb and pop a head back on them. So it's got like puns, it's got that humour. Sorry, there's a really loud motorbike that just went past there. Sorry if everyone just heard that.
And this is Cat live from the Monaco Grand Prix, and then go!
I used to work at Brands Hatch Hotel, so I know my. I don't know anything. I know how to make a bed.
But really quickly, and then wheel the bed in.
Hospital corners.
Within 10 seconds, you've changed the bed and it's out again. Four of you, one on each corner. Go!
So yeah, so you got like lightheadedness. You have clowns will come in, and so you've got this room that has like a circus theme.
Is that because they're feeling funny?
No, the treatment is a humifier. A dehumifier. Dehumifier. That's the one. Gets them back into normal society, so they're not a clown anymore. So you've got all the wacky stuff like that, which I like. The mimes who they all walk down the hallway as if they're fighting a breeze that isn't there, or they'll stand as if they're stuck in a box when they're waiting. So all of that, it's very cute, and it feels really British. I think it was developed in Surrey or somewhere, so I think it's a British thing, and that I'm sure that shines through in some of the humour. The one thing I saw, which I haven't fully implemented yet because I finished that level, was to just increase the cost of seeing a GP, because that will put people off coming. So you end up with shorter queues, and I'm like, oh, this is all feeling a bit American now. We've gone from we've got the British humour and then the American health system.
Does it have difficulty levels? Like, is it like kind of easy, medium, hard, very hard, and NHS funding? It's definitely getting trickier as you go, and like a lot of things like this, like Overcooked and that, you'll have a different theme. I believe like you have a hospital where it's really hot, so you have to put stuff in to get the temperature down. But I'm finding little things already that I haven't read about, but a gold star certificate that you can put on a wall. But if you put a load of them on the wall in a room,
it makes the prestige, because you've got like levels for the room. So the higher the level, the happier people are in it. If you just stick loads of this identical certificate, put it all around the wall, then the prestige of the room rockets up. So I'm already finding these little niggles. It feels like it should be if you put different things in the room. So like a water fountain and a coffee machine and a plant, like that should do it, not just guys going around to every single room just shoving this gold certificate in all of them.
You know, like, should we fill this hole in the wall with an MRI scanner or 75 gold star posters?
That's what I say. It's £300 for each, or $300 or whatever for each one of these certificates. But by that point, I had loads, and it's
wallpapering the place with them.
What I was stuck on was I had to get staff morale to 75%. And I was doing everything. I prestiged all these rooms. I was putting roses everywhere to up the beauty of the place. I was making sure that the staff rooms were good. I was doing everything. I was training them and giving them promotions and checking on the pay and stuff. The one thing that ends up I had to do to pass, because I'd get up to like 71% and think, I'm doing it. And then it would drop down, and it's like 68%, 67%, and dropping. And it was just to get everyone's pay so that they're happy with it, instead of just like so with it. And it's like all this stuff I was doing. So it feels like there's some things, if you don't know to do it, like there's a whole screen that I hadn't seen for the first couple of levels that I then found later on. But yeah, I think if you're looking, either if you like simulation games, or I think you can go fairly deep because all the staff have got different traits and you can train them in stuff. So you could train the doctors to be the best. If you want them in the GP surgery, then amp up their GP skills, etc. So yeah, so if you like simulation games, or if you played Theme Hospital when you were younger and want some nostalgia, then definitely worth checking out.
One of the things about that, I suppose, is the no, it's gone. John will have to cut out that.
Oh no!
John will have to cut out that
baby brain.
John will have to cut out that 20-second gap.
I'm leaving that in. Tony completely blanking.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Right, well, I think that's probably pretty much it for today. I don't think we have a Simon's Game this week, do we, Simon?
No.
I don't know why it took so long for Simon to figure that out.
Can the guests have a point, please?
I don't think that's fair.
You never know unless you ask.
I'm sure Simon will have to run it past the board.
I'll ask the board, but they're not doing Simon's Game anyway, so I'm in a rock and a hard place situation.
Well, fair enough. But Simon's Game will return next time, so we can look forward to that. But and so until then, I guess it's time to wrap up. Don't forget, we're on Twitter @BallsOnATray, on Facebook, facebook.com/BallsOnATray. We're on YouTube. If you search on there for Balls on a Tray, you should find us. And so tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.